Professional development is really critical for people along the whole continuum and along all generations, particularly with new grads. They really struggle with getting acclimated into the workforce. And so being able to have a new grad residency program where they can have coaching and development, that's kind of a norm of what we're seeing. And it's certainly become really critical as more and more new grads are coming into arenas that are really challenging these days. We often think of professional development in that context, but we may not think about it in the importance of how do you develop your nursing assistants. The ancillary teams are really critical these days as we get into the workforce challenges, and being able to have programs that teach and educate them is becoming very critical. You have to fill each of those pieces of the pipeline now. Before, when we could look at the nursing piece of it and we would do AD to BSN programs, that was pretty focused. Now you have to fill each piece. If you don't have a CNA pipeline, it's very difficult to have CNAs become RNs because now you have to fill that group. So we've been very intentional of making sure we have CNA training. Along with the CNA training, it's an opportunity to be an LPN to an associate degree to BSN. And it's been very important, particularly in diverse workforces, that you have that stepping stone so that people can advance. They can have salary and wage increases as they go along, and you're also filling an important patient care need. So that piece is what I talk about when we're saying we have to fill the pipeline. Education alone is not enough. Recognizing people in the midst of this pandemic has become critical. We all know there's high burnout. There's really people are really tired right now. And so having joy and having the moments of acknowledging this hard work, even though it's hard for everybody to get around that, becomes even more critical for people to have that energy to move forward. So doing things like employee week appreciation, making sure that you take the time to really talk about the salute for nurses. That's another thing we did. It wasn't just doing those nominations, but it was highlighting it within the organization. It was the personal note that went out to anyone who was nominated, making sure that our managers understand that those thank you notes, those acknowledgments of, yeah, you went really out of your way that day, and sending little gift cards that are $15 that just say thank you. Those recognitions on top of the professional development is really critical because our teams are so tired. And then finally, when we think about programs, you have the professional development, you have the recognition that certainly is critical, but programs that include things that you might not think of. Those are digital literacy, for example. We talk about wanting to have our CNAs trained. Well, part of that training and to get them prepared for these classes are also those things to help them feel comfortable with computer skills. These are all retention strategies. These are all, I believe in you. I appreciate what you're doing. And as a collective, a cluster of actions, these strategies are really critical in helping to make sure we have what we need for our workforce. When we think about how we have to engage and train our employees, we really also need to think in context of, is it in the acute care world or is it in the post-acute care world? And my assessment in the post-acute, it's become even more challenging. In the times when before COVID, the world before COVID, we often had the opportunity to have robust new grad programs. There were not a lot of opportunities for them in the acute care world. So for us, they were very important to have that new grad pool as part of our workforce development. This has changed everything because now we know that the acute care workforce is also struggling for their workforce. And this is where the shift becomes that our LPNs and our nursing assistant pipeline and actively making sure our internal employees have access to developing these skills is becoming more and more critical. So this is an opportunity to not only retain our current staff, but it's almost a necessity that we make sure that we have the opportunity to develop our own internally. The external workforce is competing with one another. And so these are unique things that we have to recognize. Our ability to take our own employees and maximize and give them opportunities is really going to be our success and how we are going to fill our own internal pipeline. We talk about frontline staff, but I really worry about the management and the leadership going through this, and how do you recognize that they have to change their job and you have to put specific programs in to help our managers and our leaders stay focused. They're kind of jammed in the middle. They're the ones that are trying to get the staff when there is no staff. They're there to make sure that the care doesn't change or suffer as we are challenged with staffing. So they're a unique team that we don't often think when we're looking at the workforce challenges, but they're critical. If you have your managers and leaders who are well cared for, and you're having specialized programs such as a loan forgiveness for them, giving them some creative time off or allowing them to do some remote work where it makes sense to do paperwork, you have to take care of them because they are the linchpin to the teams that they're taking care of. If you do not have a strong leader, you will have a lot more difficulty retaining your staff because they are the constant person that's going to help meet them where they're at, help them get through some rough patches, but they need support as well. And that's not often talked about as much as our workforce challenges, but is a really critical piece of our pipeline.